Hello Army, welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, welcome, because today we have something that is so fresh, so unexpected, so perfectly joyful that I genuinely could not wait to sit down and tell you the full story. This happened today. Right now. As in, while many of you are watching this video, the BTS Ararang World Tour is still happening in Mexico City, and the story we are about to discuss unfolded in the last several hours in a way that has sent every corner of the internet, not just ARMY spaces, but Mexican entertainment media, wrestling fan communities, general pop culture accounts, into an absolute frenzy of excitement and warmth. We are talking about Jimin and Jungkook at the Arena Mexico. We are talking about Lucha Libre. We are talking about Místico, one of the most beloved and most iconic professional wrestlers in Mexican history. And we are talking about a moment of cultural collision that is so genuinely beautiful and so completely unexpected that it deserves every word we are about to give it. So get comfortable, because this story has layers, and every single one of them is wonderful. Let's start with the context, because to fully appreciate what happened tonight, you need to understand both sides of this story, the BTS side and the Lucha Libre side. On the BTS side, the Ararang World Tour rolled into Mexico City, one of the most anticipated stops on the entire tour, for a multi-night run at the Estadio GNP Seguros. The first night of concerts had already delivered everything that Mexican Army had been waiting years for: a sold-out arena, an incredible production, the full energy of BTS returning to a country that has loved them fiercely and consistently for over a decade. After the first night, the members had a day off before the weekend shows, and rather than spending that day resting in their hotel, some of them decided to go out and experience Mexico City. Jimin, Jungkook, Jin, and Suga, 4 of the 7 members, headed into the city on what turned out to be one of the most talked about off-day adventures in recent BTS history. Now on the Lucha Libre side, you need to understand what Arena Mexico is and what it represents in Mexican culture, because this is not just a wrestling venue. Arena Mexico is known as the Cathedral of Lucha Libre, the most historic, the most revered, the most culturally significant professional wrestling venue in the entire country. Lucha Libre is not just a sport in Mexico. It is a cultural institution that dates back generations, that has produced iconic figures and legendary families, that carries the weight of tradition and community and regional identity in ways that go far beyond athletic competition. The Arena Mexico is to Lucha Libre what Carnegie Hall is to classical music or what Fenway Park is to baseball, a place so deeply embedded in the national cultural consciousness that simply walking through its doors is an act of engagement with Mexican heritage. For Jimin, Jungkook, Jin, and Suga to choose the Arena Mexico as the destination for their day off in Mexico City is already a story. It is already a statement of curiosity and engagement and genuine interest in experiencing Mexican culture beyond the concert stage. They did not have to go there. They could have stayed in their hotel, they could have visited any number of tourist-friendly attractions, they could have done any of the things that international celebrities typically do when they have a free day in a foreign city. They chose Lucha Libre. They chose the cathedral. They chose the most Mexican of Mexican experiences, and that choice is the foundation of everything that followed. Now here is where the story gets extraordinary, and it starts before Jimin and Jungkook and the others had even been recognized by the crowd. The featured wrestler for the evening was Místico, and for those who are not familiar with the world of Lucha Libre, let me tell you a little about who Místico is, because his significance to this story cannot be overstated. Místico is one of the most celebrated and most recognizable figures in Mexican professional wrestling, known for his silver and gold mask, his aerial acrobatics, and his decades of building a legacy in the sport that has made him a beloved figure not just among Lucha Libre fans but across Mexican popular culture. He is, in the truest sense of the word, a legend. And on this particular Friday night at the Arena Mexico, Místico walked out to the ring wearing something that nobody expected. On his jacket, displayed proudly and unmistakably, was the logo of BTS. The reaction when people registered what they were seeing on Místico's jacket was immediate and electric. Fans in the arena, some of whom had already begun to suspect that international celebrities might be in attendance based on the unusual group of people in the front rows who seemed to be trying very hard not to draw attention to themselves, suddenly had their suspicions crystallized into certainty. The moment Místico appeared with that BTS jacket, the message was clear. He knew. He had prepared. This was not a coincidence. The Cathedral of Lucha Libre was welcoming BTS tonight, and one of its most iconic champions had chosen to mark that occasion in the most public and most visually dramatic way possible by carrying their symbol into the ring. Let's pause here and really appreciate what Místico did, because it is such a specific and such a meaningful gesture that it deserves careful attention. Professional wrestlers in Mexico are deeply conscious of their image and their presentation. The mask and the costume of a luchador are not accessories, they are central to the character, the identity, and the mythology of the performer. When Místico chose to wear a BTS jacket to the ring on this particular night, he was not making a casual fashion choice. He was making a deliberate statement of welcome, of acknowledgement, of respect. He was saying to Jimin, Jungkook, Jin, and Suga, in the language of Lucha Libre, in the language of his own cultural arena, "You are here, I see you, and tonight I honor your presence in my house." That gesture, made in front of thousands of people, in one of the most symbolically loaded settings in Mexican popular culture, is genuinely extraordinary. It is a form of cross-cultural recognition that you cannot manufacture and cannot stage, it can only happen when it is real. Meanwhile, Jimin, Jungkook, Jin, and Suga had arrived at the Arena Mexico attempting, with varying degrees of success, to be inconspicuous. They were wearing masks and hooded garments, trying to blend in with the crowd well enough to enjoy the evening without creating a disruption. This effort at anonymity is both completely understandable and, in retrospect, somewhat optimistic. For members of the world's most famous musical act, watching a Lucha Libre match from the front row of the Cathedral of Lucha Libre in Mexico City, wearing colorful wrestling masks that are somewhat distinctive even in that setting, the success of this camouflage was always going to be limited. And indeed, while the disguises held for longer than you might expect, the masks eventually proved insufficient. The first to be recognized was Jimin. Of course it was Jimin. Of course, the person who has the quality of making himself impossible to ignore, whose presence creates a specific kind of attention gravity that works even through layers of disguise and deliberate anonymity attempts, was the one who was spotted first. Fans at the arena who caught a glimpse of him despite the mask and the hood quickly shared what they had seen to social media, and within minutes the news was spreading through the Mexican Army network and then beyond. BTS is at the Luchas. Jimin is at the Luchas. The Cathedral of Lucha Libre has 4 members of BTS in its front rows tonight. And Jungkook, sitting beside Jimin in that front row, was part of this moment in a way that has generated its own specific wave of fan response. The image of Jimin and Jungkook side by side at a Lucha Libre match, both in wrestling masks, both trying, and somewhat failing to remain unobtrusive, is so genuinely delightful and so completely characteristic of a certain dimension of who they are together: adventurous, playful, game for unexpected experiences, that Army response was immediate and overwhelming. Jungkook content in any form generates significant excitement within the fandom, but Jungkook content that is unexpected, unplanned, and rooted in a real-life spontaneous adventure in a foreign country hits differently. This was not a staged interaction. This was not content produced for a camera. This was 2 people choosing to spend their day off at a wrestling match in the most legendary wrestling venue in Mexico, sitting next to each other in the front row, wearing masks that did not quite manage to hide them. Jimin, true to who he is, documented the experience himself. He posted to his Instagram stories from inside the Arena Mexico, including a mirror selfie that showed him in his wrestling mask, an image that combined the mundane intimacy of a casual selfie with the extraordinary context of ParkJimin at a Lucha Libre match in Mexico, and somehow came out as one of the most charming and most widely shared pieces of content he has produced in recent memory. The selfie has a quality of genuine joy to it, a lightness and a playfulness that reflects someone who was having a wonderful time doing something completely different from anything his professional life normally requires of him. No choreography, no vocal technique, no performance considerations, just Jimin in a wrestling mask, apparently very happy to be exactly where he is. Now let's talk about the moment that completed this whole story and elevated it from a delightful celebrity sighting into something genuinely moving. After Místico's match, which he entered wearing that BTS jacket and which the crowd watched with the added electric charge of knowing that BTS members were in the audience, the wrestler descended from the ring and made his way to the section of seats where Jimin, Jungkook, Jin, and Suga were sitting. And he greeted them personally, warmly, one by one. The images and videos of this interaction immediately went viral, and for good reason, because what you see in them is not the careful, managed, slightly formal interaction that tends to characterize celebrity encounters in official settings. What you see is something much warmer and much more human than that. You see a Mexican lucha libre legend, in his full ring costume with that BTS jacket still visible, reaching out to greet 4 Korean pop stars who came to watch him wrestle on their day off, and both sides of that encounter being genuinely, visibly delighted by the moment. Místico apparently spent particular time with Jin, who received an especially warm greeting that fans caught on camera and immediately began analyzing and celebrating with characteristic thoroughness. But the overall quality of the interaction, the ease, the warmth, the sense of genuine mutual recognition between people from completely different worlds who have unexpectedly found themselves sharing an extraordinary moment is what makes the footage so compelling. This is cultural exchange at its most authentic and most spontaneous, happening not in a formal diplomatic setting or a planned media moment but in the stands of a wrestling arena on a Friday night because 4 musicians decided to spend their day off doing something real. Let's think for a moment about what this whole evening reveals about Jimin and Jungkook specifically, because I think there is something worth saying about the particular quality of curiosity and engagement with the world that this adventure reflects. Throughout the Arirang World Tour, both Jimin and Jungkook have shown a consistent interest in actually experiencing the places they visit, not just performing in them and moving on, but engaging with the local culture, the local food, the local experiences that make each city what it is. This is not a new quality in either of them. Both have always been people who are genuinely interested in the world and in the human experiences it offers, who approach new places with openness and enthusiasm rather than the somewhat closed-off caution that the pressures of fame can sometimes create. The Lucha Libre adventure is a perfect expression of that quality. Mexico City is a city with an enormous richness of cultural experiences available, and Jimin and Jungkook and their fellow members chose one that is deeply, specifically, authentically Mexican, not a tourist attraction designed for international visitors but the real thing, the Cathedral of Lucha Libre on a regular Friday night, with Mexican fans who came to watch Mexican wrestlers perform in the tradition of their country's most beloved sport. By showing up to that, by sitting in the front row, by wearing the masks, by engaging with the experience with obvious genuine enthusiasm, they were doing something that said more about their relationship with Mexico and with Mexican culture than any official diplomatic visit ever could. Jimin's Instagram selfie in the wrestling mask communicates something specific about this quality. The casualness of it, the comfort with which he documented his own tourist in a mask moment, reflects someone who was not performing enjoyment for an audience but actually experiencing it. There is a difference between a celebrity posting curated content designed to show that they are engaging with local culture and a celebrity posting a mirror selfie in a wrestling mask because they are having a great time and want to share it. The selfie is clearly the second thing. And that authenticity is what makes it resonate so immediately and so widely. The Mexican Army response to this whole evening has been everything you would expect from one of the most passionate fan communities in the world, and then some. The moment Jimin and Jungkook were confirmed to be in the arena Mexico, Mexican fans went into a mode of celebratory documentation that has produced an enormous volume of content, commentary, and expression of joy. Some of the responses capture something beautiful about what this moment means in the context of the longer history between BTS and Mexico. One fan wrote that the Cathedral of Lucha Libre had become the temple of K-pop for one night. Another noted that they never expected to see BTS at the Luchas on the list of places they would encounter their idols. The humor and the warmth of these responses reflects a community that is experiencing something it did not anticipate and is finding pure delight in the unexpectedness of it. And the broader non-army response is equally significant. Mexican Lucha Libre fans who have no particular investment in K-pop encountered this story tonight and responded with their own warmth, a recognition that when Místico walked out wearing that BTS jacket, he was doing something that reflected well on the Lucha Libre community and on Mexico as a whole. The willingness to welcome, to acknowledge, to extend the gesture of that jacket to foreign visitors who came to experience the sport, that is something that Mexican wrestling fans have taken genuine pride in, and rightfully so. What we witnessed tonight at the Arena Mexico is one of those moments that reminds you why the intersection of music and culture and travel and human connection is so endlessly meaningful. Jimin and Jungkook did not need to go to a Lucha Libre match. Místico did not need to wear a BTS jacket. The fans at the arena did not need to respond with the warmth and the joy that they did. But all of those things happened, spontaneously, genuinely, in the span of a single evening at the Cathedral of Lucha Libre in Mexico City, and the result is a moment that is going to be talked about and remembered and rewatched for years. It is going to be on the list of the most iconic BTS Mexico moments alongside all of the extraordinary concert memories, all of the sold-out shows, all of the years of love between this group and this country. Because it is exactly the kind of moment that only BTS creates, unexpected, cross-cultural, entirely human, completely joyful, and absolutely impossible to plan. The Ararang World Tour continues this weekend with more shows at the Estadio GNP Seguros, and Mexican Army is going to be bringing everything they have to those shows, which is saying something, because Mexican Army always brings everything they have. But tonight, before the concert floor and the light sticks in the purple ocean of the arena, four members of BTS put on wrestling masks and sat in the front row of the Cathedral of Lucha Libre, and a legend named Místico walked to the ring wearing their logo on his jacket, and something genuinely beautiful happened in the space where those two worlds collided. That is the story. And it is one of the best stories the Ararang Tour has given us so far. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. It genuinely helps the channel reach more people who need this kind of joy in their lives right now. Drop a comment below telling me your reaction to this whole story. Did you see the videos in real time? Did the Místico jacket moment hit you as hard as it hit me? And what do you think Jimin's wrestling mask selfie says about why we love him so much? Subscribe if you have not already, share this with your fellow army, and I will see you in the next one. Purple you all.